Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Pain Sucks podcast. I'm Dr. Matt Malonis, your host, and with me is a good friend of mine for a lot of years, Dr. Dan Sullivan. And before we get into that, I just want to let everybody know, because I've been getting a lot of messages like, what is Pain Sucks podcast? And this idea that a few months ago, I decided that working with a lot of people in pain, there was really just no good place for them to go to learn how to handle their health and getting healthy. And so that's our goal here. And so we're building a library of amazing speakers and experts talking about how to get our bodies from where they currently are that we're not enjoying to a really great place of health again. And today is going to be an absolutely mind-blowing conversation because we've spent a lot of time on foundation emotionally, but we're going to tie emotion to physical today. We're going to really talk about the importance of the spine and the nervous system. And, for Dan and I, that means we're really going to crush the truth behind and actually why people need chiropractic care. Not the kind that I think that most people associate with Dan, who are in a lot of pain, but the kind that truly works. So let me introduce my guest this morning. Dr. Dan Sullivan is a doctor of chiropractic. Obviously, I've known him a long time. But more importantly, I think I love that you're a chiropractor, but you've become a mentor of mine as an international speaker, author. I know that you're an adjunct professor at one of the colleges in chiropractic. I believe it's Life University, correct?
Yeah.
And I know your proudest accomplishment is being a father of 3 amazing daughters. And one of the things I love about you is that we met years ago, but that was back in a time when you were really building what I don't think people know this about you, but you're building one of the largest chiropractic practices in the history of chiropractic. And at the same time, you're working with USA athletes and even attending the Olympics back in 2012 as the team chiropractor for actually multiple teams like wrestling and judo. And I remember that your life was rocking in terms of what you were doing for the profession and for patients. But I know that your life kind of took a little bit of a turn when I think maybe it was an internal mission call that you needed to take it from like maybe just that place that you were practicing and take this thing to the world. And that's why it's hard to track you down nowadays, man. You're always speaking somewhere for chiropractors, for medical schools, for all kinds of stuff. So we are so honored to have you with us today.
Yeah, man, that's a great intro. You nailed it. I mean, few people actually, just because, we go way back. But yeah, you're right. There's a certain level of success and drive and practice. And then I realized, this message is that big. And some of the gift that God has gifted me with, I feel like to some people it's a nuisance, which I always ask questions. Why? And so that forces me down past to understand things maybe that most don't want to take it to. And so that's why I'm glad to be here to understand this pain thing and understand it. And too, Dr. Matt, like I remember, we've been to many events together. I remember riding buses to camps together and back home and getting to know each other. I remember seeing you in Chicago before we really kind of knew each other, but I remember watching you from a stage. I'm like, man, there's a communicator. Actually, you were like the MC of the event. And I just remember, man, what a communicator, ability to connect with people. And so what a great blessing that people, get to listen to you to, what I feel you're called to do is actually communicate this thing. I would argue, I know you say this, but God had you in that pain for some reason, and now you can be a light to others. And let's blow this thing up and help people get well.
I love it, dude. Thank you very much. Yeah, I it's been a lot of years since we've been together in person, but it's like I guess this social media thing lets us all keep in touch. So let's jump into today because I know that your time is really valuable. I know you're super busy, and we want to keep it just powerful for people. So really, I just want to let guys, those of you that are watching right now, and by the way, Dan, there's people watching like right now from all over the world. So there's people that got up to watch this and they're going to be logging in here, and I'm getting text messages about when is this thing on? I'm like, it's on now. So check it out. But I'm actually just going to sit and listen. I'm going to take my notes as usual. But one of the things that blows my mind as I've seen you do some work lately with chronic pain is this idea of foundation. And we've had a wonderful speakers on talking about mindset, talking about energy systems. And I'd like for you to tie it all together for us today. So before you do that, just how did you go from this idea of spreading this message of the truth around what chiropractic is and does for people, mainly our philosophy that we believe in? And maybe we need to lay that groundwork first. But here's the first big question is, how do you tell yourself, I'm going to leave this very successful life and then I'm going to move into like understanding the science behind why people are suffering, and then more importantly, take it to the world so that they can understand how they can get out of that pain, as we like to say, actually just create health again.
Yeah, I can tell you very vividly. I did a talk at I was, kind of hyped in my practice, and I went and did a talk at a university, a school, and and somebody challenged me with a question that I couldn't answer. And I was seeing all these results and amazing things happen. I mean, literally, you name it, people walking out of diseases that we've seen so often. And but someone challenged me with a question I couldn't answer, and I knew everything was real and right and happening, but I couldn't specifically answer why. And so I dove down. So my background is actually, I was meant to, I wanted to be like my brothers. I grew up, I have a fifth of 8 kids. Mom's been a nurse for 35 years right now. My 2 oldest brothers are medical doctors. My sister's an occupational therapist. I wanted to be like that. My path got changed because I got injured pole vaulting in high school, sport and track, and went to everybody, all the surgeons, all the orthopedists, all the PTs, and nobody could get me better. In fact, to the point where one doctor told my mom that it was in my head. And I thought to myself, hey, if it's in my head, just tell me how to get it out of my head, because all I want to do is play. I don't want to miss a season of baseball. So our family dentist said, you should try chiropractor. We didn't know what that was. I had no idea. My mom. So we go, and kind of the rest is history. So at that point, I thought, you know what? And he talked to me. He said, you should be a chiropractor, and didn't know what it was outside of help me alleviate my pain, and got me to play sports again. I went on to college to play sports, and then I went to be a chiropractor. And so I carry this thing to me of this, now with brothers and medical doctors, I hear this truth. I'm always kind of carrying this, I've visited often, like, prove it, I've got to prove it to myself, to prove it to my brothers, or prove it to my family. I'm constantly living in that world. So when somebody, challenged me in 2010 and I didn't have the answer, I was bound and determined I will find the answer. And so I followed some of the biggest researchers in our profession around for I tell it's probably 2 years. I saw them probably every other month. I was going somewhere in the country to find out why, understand this. So that's led me all the way to this journey of, like, I'm very into the evidence. What is the evidence to support why people get well, why people don't get well? And it brings me to this chronic pain. Anybody that's in pain, and you're right, I mean, that's the name of the game. Pain sucks. But I want to first start off this way. That is, I need you to understand. So there's a girl named Ashley Blocker. You can go look her up. Her name's Ashley Blocker. And she actually, there's a Time magazine article written about her. And she was born with a condition called congenital insensitivity to pain. And what that means is she had 0 pain. Now, I want you to think about, if you're a parent of Ashley or somebody like this, that your only hope and goal and dream and wish for your child is that they could have pain. Like, that is your dream for them. Like, that's your prayer, that they could have pain. Like, think how backwards that is when we think about that. Like, that would be that her parents wished she could have pain. So I want to first tell you, if you're suffering from pain out there, you're sick or something, first off, I'm going to go through some stuff that is going to maybe challenge you, but also, inspire you. I first need you to know that it's not just in your head. And just because a test maybe did or didn't say something doesn't mean it's not real. Pain is real. It's absolutely real. But I want to start to get you to see, maybe there is a reason for that. And I'm going to, again, tie a bow on it and show you there's more than a reason, but there's some great research to show why maybe it hasn't been able to be addressed. And so first, going back there, Ashley Blocker, you can go look her up, that the reality is that, and by the way, these people that are born this way, most of them, you could see she's got always bandaged, her hands are bandaged up. She was like 2 years old, because she has no ability to know danger, right? And they usually bite off the end of their tongues because they can't tell it. Appendicitis is a death sentence. They would never know, right? They could fall off of internal bleeding, fall off a swing set, never know. So you start to see, wow, this pain does serve a purpose.
Yep. Absolutely it does. But at the same time, so I like that you said you're going to wrap a bow around it, because we're also not telling people you said it's not in your head, but we're also not telling people that they need, so there's this idea, and some people are just like, oh, you need to fall in love with your pain. Well, okay. It's easy to say when you haven't, been the person that hasn't slept in 3 straight weeks more than an hour a night. You can't walk, you can't move, you're like literally limited. So I think that there's that balance of understanding, like, I need to understand that my body is doing something correctly, but at the same time, I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
And so that middle balance there and understanding pain, whether you just hurt yourself, sprained an ankle, or there's this chronic thing that you've had for 25 years, like owning the fact that something is happening that's correct, that it's not in your head, but that now what we need to do is figure out what happened, what's being blocked from your amazing healing, and how do we move forward. And like our tagline with Pain Sucks Podcast is no one gets to tell you that you can't heal. So I love like all the speakers have been coming on and being like, exactly. Like if you're not healing, there's still something in the way.
Yeah.
So knowing that it's not in your head, but be okay with that it's real. That and then like even the story about the young lady, like, gosh, like, could you imagine not ever knowing?
Yeah.
Where do we go from here, though? So you've discovered some of these things. So where do we go from here?
Yeah. So you're exactly right. Is like, first off, you understand that you have the capability to heal. And the question I always ask, right, a patient is this: do you believe that the pain is the source of your pain, or there is actually a source to your pain?
Right.
And nobody's ever said, no, I believe my pain is my pain. I believe that the headache is the cause of the pain. Like, no, there's a source to the pain. So that's the cool part, is that we could track back everything has a source. So if there's a source, then we can actually address that source or begin to address and peel the onion. So that said, let me give you this analogy. I use this everywhere I speak. I was just in Colorado last week. I was in Wisconsin the week before that. Next week I'll be in Florida. I mean, I travel pretty much every week to go speak to doctors and other physicians and patients, for that matter, to help get them to understand that this message of that the greatest doctor is not the one down the block doing surgeries, not the one up the block giving chiropractic adjustments, and surely not the one down giving prescriptions. The greatest doctor, right, is not the chiropractor, orthopedist, or the MD. The greatest doctor is inside. And you have to, and I know, again, like you said, I'm glad you reminded that, Dr. Matt, is that it's so hard because it was like, well, you don't get where I'm at. Like, I've been in pain every single day for the last 22 years, right? So, and I can sympathize with that. I can't fully understand it because I had not been in pain for the last 22 years. But here's what I can say is, I always throw this analogy, and every time I speak, I always tell my wife, like, I always talk about breasts a lot. And here's why: because breast milk, right, nursing becomes a very good representation of why. I see you sit up in your seat, you're like, oh, let's hear this one.
I'm like writing this down. This is going to be good.
Here's why. So like when you look at breast milk, right, and nursing, my wife, we've got 3 kids, we got an 8.5-year-old, we got a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old. So my wife has essentially been nursing for the last 8 years, 8.5 years. Yeah. And so I say that because if you understand this one crazy concept, so when a baby latches on and begins suckling, like their saliva has a certain pH and made up of a certain chemical property, and there's receptors on the mother's nipple that actually will respond to that saliva, the makeup of the saliva, and actually the mom's body will make a specific breast milk in accordance to the baby's needs, giving out by that saliva. Like that, it is so like you can't even comprehend how incredible that is, right? There's another one, is that there's research to show that when a mom smells a dirty diaper, like that the breast milk actually changes by her just simply smelling it. So if you're like me, we say, hey, babe, like we're all about health of our family. So I'm like, I grew up with 7 brothers and sisters. I know how to change a good dirty diaper. According to the evidence, it's just not a good idea, right? Because right. So I say that, and my wife's like, well, we'll figure that out. You can change, Harper, I'll take a whiff, and we all get, the win. Yeah. But the point I would say that I want to make sure you guys understand is that, and I also show a lot of times, I don't have it here, but I show a slide of a mom that pumped breast milk. It just looks like white breast milk into a little, their little thing. And then the baby, she nursed the baby throughout the night. The baby starts getting symptoms throughout the night, starts getting sick. She gets up the next morning, and the mom pumps breast milk then, and the breast milk is completely yellow. It looks like colostrum. It's like this yellow. And I always ask the audience, what is the difference? Well, the difference is that yellow breast milk is made up of immune-fighting chemistry. And that mom, as great as moms are, great as you moms are, great as intelligent you are, you don't have the intelligence to actually do that and make that change. And I say that because that's where the healing comes from, is this greatest doctors within. If it can do that, I can tell you right now, it can heal you from your pain. Right. And I know those are just words, but I could, again, continue to put meat on the bones of, like, I could show you people that have been, defeated, but at that little bit of hope. And so I hope that I want to get that across to you. But now let's look at some of the evidence that supports why maybe you're missing out on a couple different things to put in your life to actually, get over the hump.
Right. I think that's so important. And I feel like science is constantly validating the philosophy that we've owned in chiropractic. And I don't even know that chiropractic owns it. I mean, it's just,
Chiropractic has just recognized it.
Yeah,
right?
God owns it. But the truth of the matter is what you said is the greatest doctor is inside. And you know what? Here's what's really cool is like innately you could say that to someone and they go, that feels right. I mean, there's very, you know what I mean? Like, I don't care who the person is. I sit down in consultations all the time and I'm like, explain this idea that, we're not really trying to get you to feel good. We're trying to get you to function right. The greatest doctor is in you. How does that feel to you? And they're like, that feels right. But the truth of the matter is feeling right, understanding and having that little bit of hope is just enough to maybe springboard to now like what you're talking about. Like, let's now prove it to you and then let's do it so that you get those results. So I love that you started with some amazing examples of how amazing the body is. And yet it's awesome. But now, like, walk us through what's next. Like, what happens now that person's like, I get it. If I get a paper cut, it heals. I get it. Dan, I haven't slept in 3 weeks and I've missed work and I lost my job, but I get it. Now what? Now what do we do?
Well, actually, I'm going to take 90 more seconds to this because I know there's somebody out there that is like, you know what, I get that. Those are cool stories. And like you said, but if you're anything like me, and I know a lot of people aren't, but I'm very analytical and I'm very evidence-based. And so I want to, there's a biologist, and I'm just going to share just a brief paragraph about this. So basically, and what I'm going to tell you is that some of the greatest scientists, experts, researchers in the world, to your point, Matt, is that we're now proving what we've been talking about for 124 years in chiropractic. But chiropractic just recognize the fact that it's God's laws of health and healing. Two cells created you from 0 to 80 trillion cells later, and so that same power, that same intelligence, that same doctor within is on the job. And so we've got to find the obstructions, remove the obstructions, get to the source. And I'm going to share with you how to do that. But let me tell you this. So this guy named Rupert Sheldrake, I'll spare you. I'm going to go right to the point. He says, I was invited when I was in Cambridge College, very high college, studied biochemistry, and I was invited to some private meetings with Francis Crick and Sidney Brenner in 1963. Francis Crick had just cracked the genetic code, like DNA guy. They're one of the smartest guys that ever walked the face of the planet. Here's what he said. They explained that there was 2 major problems in biology, and they were not solved because people weren't bright. So here's what they say, that Crick and Brenner were going to find the answers within 10 or 20 years to find out that health, life, and minds can be simply described by physics and chemistry. And I'm going to tell you why this matters. It says, both tried their best. Brenner was awarded the Nobel Prize. Crick was awarded the Nobel Prize on the brain the day before he died in 2004. His funeral, his son said his desire was not to be famous, wealthy, or popular, but to knock the final nail in the coffin of vitalism. And vitalism means that there's something more to the story. And he says, he failed. So did Brenner. The problems of development and consciousness remain unsolved. Many details have been sequenced. Dozens of genomes have been found out. Brain scans and technology ever more precise, but there's still no proof that life and minds can be explained by physics and chemistry alone. Right. What that means to me, what that means to you, is that the greatest evidence today supports the fact that you cannot describe your health simply based on the physical tissue of your body. And so there's something more to the story. And this is the beauty of chiropractic, this is the beauty of addressing pain, is that when you first can understand that there's something more. And I know you've talked about this on a previous podcast with other docs, right? I want to get you a point across is that I'm the evidence-based guy. I will walk into any room with any PhD, with any scientist, with any researcher, and I will explain to them this model to say that I know you think that you could just break the body down and build it back up and it's all the same. That's not scientific and it's not evidence-based. And so if we can acknowledge that, then we could first then say, okay, then how can I remove obstacles to my body to help this intelligence win, help it to be pain-free, help it to create a life of not disability and not pain. And so I started to go off for there a minute, but I want somebody to understand this, say, well, these guys aren't very scientific. Listen, I'll go into any I've been into the research centers. I've been to the PhDs. I've presented to the experts, and they can't debate this. You can't refute this, but it doesn't mean that everybody's going to get better. It means that we have to now have, that's the lens that we look through in order to get you better.
I totally agree. And if anybody is doubting your passion, it just came through huge. And this is why you do what you do, because this has to come through. So I spend all day right now consulting with people, asking me questions about injections and oil, like just all this stuff. And I mean, listen, I've kind of got to this point where I'm not like, I don't throw my thing against anything anymore. Like, I don't feel that that's productive in any way. But one of the things I typed out yesterday and did a little Facebook Live on was this idea of simplicity. And I wrote an email yesterday just talking about, like, we're literally dying from a lack of simplicity. Mm-hmm. We've made things so difficult to understand. And then this morning I posted, like, it really, the truth is, if you can't pronounce what they're going to do for you, you probably don't want it, because it's probably so darn complicated. And is it based in some science? Perhaps. But like some interactions I've had lately with people, like being misdiagnosed or being scared to death about something that ends up being nothing, because we've gotten away from this idea that the body knows everything. It knows what to do. You've already just proven it to us, dude. And I know you're going to drop some crazy science this 9 to 16 minutes. It knows. The thing we're trying to get people to understand right now is calm down, take a deep breath, have you turn those rocks over that let the body do its job. Yeah. Or are we so busy looking for some outside in thing, which, listen, there's times when those are okay in the moment. But if you don't have this in your soul, that you have the ability, that it's in you already, and your job is to release it, then really everything becomes a moot point, and we're just popping from one office to the next, to the next, to the next, not getting anywhere. So I think that you use the word, where is this pain source coming from? And let's unpack that.
So, and let me just, so there's research in 2013. Okay, it came out of Spine Journal, one of the most reputable journals there is out there.
Yeah.
And what they did, and the reason why it brings us up to follow on that point, like, all this stuff is good. All the stuff you're talking about, the essential oils, like all of this. And I'm going to show you, like, I feel like now I'm a little bit more wise. 10 years ago, I would have been like, like, it's only this way. Like, no, it's not, because I understand the psychology, the emotion, the understanding, the stress hormones. And so if you walked in, if your house, somebody says, your wife says, I need a makeover. I need our house to look different. Like, I need it to look amazing. Right. And you invited a painter in, guess what they're going to say? Let these walls, I'll do this with the paint. You invited somebody that sells furniture. What are they going to say? No, let's get rid of that. Do you see? Right. Everybody would have a different perspective, and they're not wrong, because they probably could do it. So even when treating pain, what we found out is that who you go to matters. There's no coincidence that you're on this pain podcast right now, and then you're going to go listen to all the other ones after you hear this one, because you're going to want to get on. Like, it matters who you go to. It matters, right? So 2013 research showed that those who had pain in their back, injured their back, went to a provider. If they went to the medical doctor, they actually had a 42.5% chance, or 42.7% chance to have surgery within 3 years. If they went to a chiropractor first, they had a 1.5% chance. So is it to say the surgeon's bad? No, that's just their tool, right? So what I want to do then is let's backtrack a little bit and say, okay, where does a lot of this pain come from? And that's when we need to go into some of the evidence that supports this. And I'm going to tell you, this isn't a chiropractic study. This is amazing stuff. And here's what it is. Did you have any follow-up to that? I'll drive right in there, Matt.
No, I think we're ready to go, because you just nailed it. So this is about, everybody has their way of looking at things. The problem is, like, the very first place we should be looking is in the office of the person who is going, you have everything inside of you that you already need.
Yes.
The person that goes, I've got an empty surgery table. I've got a whole cabinet full of these pills, and I have about 3 minutes for you. The first stop needs to be at the person that says, you already have inside of what you need, and you will heal.
You know what? And sometimes there are MDs out there. There's orthopedists. There's people out there just like that. I said, if the greatest doctor's inside, man, you stole my line. If the greatest doctor's inside, then the best doctor is the one that first acknowledges and honors the greatest doctor and doesn't seek to cure or heal you, seeks to remove interference from that greatest doctor. And there's a lot of ways to remove interference. I mean, we're going to go down a path. But so let me start here. So 2013 landmark study. 2013, this is a game changer, a absolute game changer. Here's what happens. So they took two groups of people. One group had pain for 10 years or longer, right? So chronic pain, nasty, 10 years or longer. The other group had only had it for 2 months. And they did fMRI studies, and they followed these two groups for every 3 months for a year. Here's what they found out. So you take the group that has had pain for 10 years or longer, they did fMRI, which means that they looked at parts of the brain that were lit up as to where the pain was coming from.
Right.
And they found that the pain was actually coming from the mental, emotional centers of the brain, right? Compare that to a group that had only 2 months worth of pain. Their pain centers were coming from the physical tissue centers of the pain. In their case, it was the spine tissue, the muscles, the joints, the bones, the disc. That area of the brain was lit up, that physical tissue. Now, here's where it got crazy. They followed them every 3 months. Once they hit over 90 days, now let me backtrack. Of that group that had 2 months of pain or less, that half of that group got better. So they actually got better. The pain got better. The other half stayed the same or got worse. Here was the crazy kicker of the entire thing, was that the group that had 2 months of pain and then eventually got worse, when they did the brain studies, they showed that the part of the brain that lit up changed at 90 days, meaning if you have pain for 90 days or beyond, the pain centers of the brain switched from physical tissue to mental, emotional parts of the brain. What this tells us is that now, by the way, the pain, actually the people that had the pain 2 months and then it went longer, the pain did not change. It's not like they felt different pain now. The pain was the exact same area, location, and sensation. But the areas of the brain that were lit up as to where the pain was coming from actually became different. So what they call it is the driver of the pain after 90 days became different. And this has what changes the game in terms of chronic pain, because even a lot of chiropractors out there, I'll be the first to kind of acknowledge and address this, is that we'll constantly, it's all about the tissue. I'm here to say it's not about the tissue. It's about the neurology. It's about the nervous system. It's about the brain and the central nervous system. And so what we first have to understand is that if you've had pain for more than 90 days, which is probably a lot of you out there, if you have pain for more than, you cannot just address the physical tissue. You have to address the neurology. Well, come to find out that yes, chiropractic uniquely addresses neurology as well as the physical, but this is one of the unique reasons why we get results when others haven't, is those that can put you on a care plan that can address the neurology short and long term. Now, let me follow this up before you give me feedback there. There's another study in 2001. This is, you probably shared this before, the phantom limb pain study. Essentially, this group had people that had pain in their arms so bad that they had to get it amputated. Yeah. And of the people that had amputated, so they had pain in the arm, right? Amputated their arm, 60% of the people felt the exact same pain. 40% of the people actually felt it worse. Yeah. So the question is, should we go actually, and I know this is should we go in the trash, reattach the arm and actually try to manipulate the tissue of the arm, because they were still feeling pain in the arm? The point, guys, is, do you understand that there's the basis of pain that most doctors aren't addressing is this neurological component that must be addressed. And then to throw on this, 2004 study, if you've had pain for more than 90 days, your sensitivity to pain goes up 500%. Yeah. So now you're sitting here saying, oh my goodness, why has it gotten so bad? It's like I'm 6 months in and I feel like I'm sensitive to everything, because of when it gets into the area of the brain. So now we got to actually, how do we address this? But I'll let you, feedback there, Dr. Matt.
But that study, that was news to me. Here's what's really funny is, as you were going through that study, I was thinking of my own journey through that, because I didn't know that study in 2013. I went down in 2015. I didn't know that study. And I'm thinking to myself, that's exactly right. Like and so here's where I deal with people every day is this up and down that they go through in that first 90 days. And I'm just like pleading with people on Facebook. I'm like, get yourself to a great chiropractor. Get yourself to someone who addressed that neurology. Like I cannot tell you how many times I've typed 90 days in. I don't know that it's coincidence, but every single person that walks into my office in pain is like, I don't care what it is, we're together for 90 days, because something beautiful happens in 90 days. You said it either the body does something beautiful called change and now you're more sensitive because you didn't address it right, or within that 90 days something beautiful happens where we actually address the neurology in such a way that we actually allow that body to go back to its healing place. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, exactly. It's a protective mechanism, right? The protective mechanism is saying, hey, let's address this. But the other element in there is that if the cause is not addressed, and then you amplify that with this emotional, like let me give you an example. So I'm in this business meeting with this every Monday. I have this business meeting through my church, and it was led by this like very, very well. And so we go. So this guy in my business meeting who just lost his job, he owned he was partially owner of a car dealership. Well, the owners bought him out. Well, just last night, literally, he comes hobbling in with back pain, and I'm like, and we were playing basketball a couple months ago, and I remember he said his back was bothering him. Well, coincidentally, in the last 6 weeks, he's lost his job. And what do you think his emotionals like? And so he literally can't even walk. And so I'm like here, and he lives on the other side of the town. So I'm like, you got to get to this chiropractor. You got to start reading this. You got to. And he was open. He's like, I don't want to be a surgeon. I'm worried about this. I don't got any hope. I'll do anything. Right. And you're like, it's no wonder why if you're going through an emotional thing, your back pain will get worse. Like when you said this wave, your back pain will get worse, or your neck pain or your headaches or whatever it is, it becomes because of this emotional center. So now I got to figure out, okay, that's the case, how do we address it, right?
Because I don't know that there's one person that would argue with anything you said. How could they? It's just science. Like someone's going to go, no, I don't believe that. I mean, you just proved to us without a shadow of a doubt that the healing is inside, it's in the neurological system, and then why am I not getting better? Because I'm not addressing that neurological system in all the different ways that it needs to be addressed for me to have victory. So like spend a few minutes, walk us through what we've got to do addressing this neurological system.
So I was doing training, this was about a year and a half ago, with a guy, one of the top guys in this industry, an MD, but like has left his medical approach and is really training people on the neuro-emotional side. And I was the only chiropractor in the room. There's probably 50 practitioners. And he said, and he came up to me and he's like, I don't actually said it in the group, I don't like chiropractors because a lot of times chiropractors scare patients into thinking that there's something wrong with them that will never get better, or it's permanent, or it's never going to go away. And so, and it's like, then it's like this physical thing. He goes, I got evidence to support that it's not a physical thing, that people with herniated discs don't always have pain and vice versa. People with small herniated discs have all this kind of crazy pain. And so, so I pulled him aside at the break and I said, Doc, listen, I know you disagree. I said, I speak about this neurologically as kind of, understanding the evidence behind this. I'm going to remind you, I'm going to tell you that what you think about chiropractic is it's short-sighted. And so I went in to tell him, it's like, what you want to understand about chiropractic is the reason that chiropractors have gotten results that seemingly seem so unrelated to the spine for the last 124 years, with the headaches and neck pain, fertility, digestion, breathing, immune system. The first guy got his hearing back. Like, why it always happens is because your spine is intimately connected to your central nervous system. So movement of that spine is so vital to the health of your central nervous system. And so it also shuts down the pain gates. What I want you to know is that when you get adjusted, right, is that it actually decreases the amount of stress hormones in your blood, norepinephrine, cortisol, adrenaline. When you decrease those are like lighter fluid to your pain. Like when they are in your bloodstream at high levels, that's lighter fluid to your pain. You got to think about that. So every time something gets adjusted, it's why some people will get adjusted. They'll get a chiropractic adjustment. They're like, Doc, I feel like a fog is lifted off I feel clarity, mental clarity. That's because it's the central nervous system, the reduction of stress hormones. I've got this chart back here. If you can see it, a whole chart that I've created, all the neurology, a poster that docs have in their offices, thousands of them across the country and world for that matter, to show them that when they get adjusted, all these aspects of the brain change. It brings down the stress hormones, and that actually is a major component. It's not just the physical tissue. That movement improves central nervous system function, reduces stress hormones, and is a major player in taking lighter fluid, right? Taking a fire extinguisher to the pain and decrease that inflammation. So that's one aspect that and to your point, you got to have a chiropractor that actually is putting on a care plan, not just based on your pain, but based on your objective findings. Are they finding things that, and are they being able to correlate that to them on their table so that they're reducing the objective findings?
Exactly. I know a friend of ours used to say, we test, we don't guess. Mm-hmm. And the truth of the matter is that if that testing isn't testing the neurology, then how do they know what they're doing? I mean, listen, I'll be the first one after 20 years of doing this now to go, there's some people that I wouldn't let touch me. I get it. It's because I want that adjustment to perform what you just said. I want the result of that. Now, listen, that's also not to say that you walk in an intense amount of pain and you get that first adjustment and you're walking home feeling amazing. You might not be. That's the whole point of the plan. The plan is to address the fact that your neurology is really under stress and it's going to take a little bit of time. And I'll be the first one to tell you that when people walk in with similar symptoms as me, I just look at them in the eye and go, listen, you're going to hurt for 90 days. You're going to hurt for 60 days. It's going to hurt, but you're going to heal through every single one of these, and everything is going to get better. So here's where I struggle, because I want us to answer this real fast before you spend the last couple of minutes on that. Guys, please, if you're a chiropractor listening to this right now, please, Dan and I beg you, test the damn neurology already. Figure out what is happening through that nervous system and get your skills good enough so that you can lay your hands on someone in the right way with the right amount of force, whichever way is best for you and for them, to let this happen. We need to stop this idea that, we're just trying to make a noise come out of a joint and someone's going to get better. In fact, we know that actually makes things worse a lot of times. Please get better at this. And people reach out to me all the time, Dan, like, what are you doing? You need to get on the phone and coach us how you help people through herniated disc. I don't even know where to start with that. I'm like, the first thing I do is I test the neurology. If you're not taking the right x-rays and doing the right scans, then like the truth of the matter is where your hands are going may be counterproductive. And I'm just going to throw that out now. I've been wanting to do it for a really long time. I think you gave me permission with your science. So let's get good at what we do, Kairos, so that we can help people that are walking in who are lost as to what's going on. All right. That being said, we need to get proper adjustments, because what it does is it sets foundation for us to heal. What do we do next?
So, man, I could just you're right. I mean, I've been on mission trips with docs right now and students and doctors, you're right. You got to own your craft. You have to have certainty and confidence. The first thing, a herniated disc patient for that matter, do you have confidence and certainty in your testing and then your procedures and your technique to actually have objective findings, to know that you're actually changing those, right? Have an ability to have objective findings, right, and know that you're changing them accordingly. So so now you've got that. Right. So as you're somebody out there suffering, you got to have a good chiropractor, and not because of just physical, it's because of the neurology and because of the ability for your body to heal. Now, here's the other thing. And I know you've heard this before and you probably talked about this, but I'm going to go into one area that I feel like, so you have to be able to sleep. Like if you can't sleep, and I know, you share your story. So I do understand the fact that could be, if you can't sleep, you can't heal, right? We know that sleeping is that's when you do your most healing. And so let me just give you a few tips. Number one is, if you're having trouble sleeping, number one, get, and I'm sure you've been through this. So if you've been through this, I'm going to remind people, research shows that if you can lower your body temperature by 1 degree, you will actually get 55% better sleep. So let's lower it by 1 degree. Set your thermometer at 68 degrees, right? And lower the body temperature of while you're sleeping, better sleep. Number two is, you're going to make sure your room is blacked out, right? Black out the curtains, black out. They did a study that showed that they put a little light underneath the knee of somebody while they're sleeping, and the reduction in the amount of deep, rapid eye movement sleep, right? Deep sleep was significant. And it's wise because you have receptors, not just over your eyes, you have receptors on every part of your body that's detective to light. And so we need to make sure it's blacked out. Again, something so simple. And then the third one I would suggest is like if you're really struggling, and again, maybe it's you're in, a heat of the moment, like crazy, disc pain or crazy fibromyalgia pain or flare up, take a lavender Epsom salt bath, because it just, that magnesium helps that body and everything relax. So you could just look up, there's, Epsom salt bath with lavender. So those three things can be something that would just start to move you in the right direction. I know you probably talk about cortisol and blue lights, and if you're looking at technologies, those are things, again, going to start to change ladder. Here's one, if you haven't heard this one, I'm going to tell you something that you're going to go look up. And I've done a lot of research on this. I've read 3 books on this. There's a guy named Pennebaker out of Austin, Texas. Another guy named Evans wrote a book, and it's called Expressive Writing. Expressive writing. It will blow your mind, some of the results. It's so easy to do. You're going to actually probably say, I don't even know how that could actually even possibly help you. Doesn't matter. Have you heard about it before, expressive writing?
So I haven't heard it called expressive writing, but so I'm going to let you expand on it, but I have a feeling I know where you're going to go, but I may be learning something new right now. Let's do this.
Yeah. So Dr. Pennebaker, there's probably other people that have called it that, but Dr. Pennebaker out of Texas, he coined it and the research on this is so unequivocal. I mean, it's mind blowing. Here's what it does, right? In a nutshell, you actually, again, you're going to say, there's no way that would do anything for me. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to take, they say anywhere from 6 to 10 minutes, and you're going to take a piece of paper. And you're going to write on that piece of paper, you're going to write down all of your emotions and everything in your head. It doesn't have to be legible. You don't have to be writable. It doesn't have to be readable. It just needs to get your emotions and thoughts onto a piece of paper. And what you want to start with is the most emotionally charged events of your life, the emotionally charged things that may, whether it be previous, whether it be current, whether it be things you're worried about, and you get that on paper. And what they found is that, and some scientists started to figure this out, the distance between you and that thought actually creates this thing where you separate from it, and that actually is like a counseling session without the counselor. So here's the point. When you get done with that paper, you're going to tear it up. It's not a journal. You're not keeping that. You're tearing it up. You're throwing it away. And now, again, I would have first to be, as an evidence-based guy, there's no way this works. I can't look at enough research to realize, battle that one in my mind. I'm telling you. So expressive writing, look it up. Very simple. It's the easiest thing you can possibly do. Some of you are going to have a crazy emotional reaction to this. You're going to actually break down, and it'll tell you got to stop. You got to, revisit it, reframe what you're doing. So expressive writing, look it up. Very powerful. Again, if the brain changes after if the pain changes to the brain in these areas, this is the stuff that works on these areas along with the physical stuff and the neurological stuff. It's all of the connecting dots. That's what matters. So you're going to sleep. You're going to start expressive writing. And then, I've got 3 things here. Again, you've probably talked about, but these are, again, also addressing the mental, emotional side. Gratitude, deep breathing, and meditation. And I know you probably talked about that. And I'm the first one to say, I never liked meditation because I never knew I was doing it right. And then I talked to a meditation expert, and they're like, there's no wrong way to do it. Right? So get on a YouTube or wherever you want and do a guided meditation. Get this stuff, right? And I'm going to say your mind's going to go 9,000 different ways like mine, but you start to do it and you start to build some neurons and synapses is going to start. So deep breathing, what that does is changes HRV. Research shows HRV reduces pain because the diaphragm and the neurology that's all in there. So deep rhythmic breathing, focus most on your exhale. The inhale takes care of itself. So I'm going through a lot of stuff here. So 5 seconds that you want 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, but I'm going to tell you, just focus on the exhale. The inhale will take care of itself. Deep rhythmic breathing, again, showing neurologically to affect that. So deep breathing, meditation, gratitude. And then I'm going to say this last one, I'll give it back to you. This is the toughest one. And I'm going to tell you, it's not easy. And I'm going to tell you, it won't be easy, is they showed research that spouses, sounds actually harsh, spouses that didn't ask their spouse who was in pain, that didn't ask them about their pain, the person actually got better. So what it means, if your spouse was kind of colder to you, the research shows that if they didn't ask you constantly about your pain, the person actually got better faster. And so what it told us, and actually there's a lot of research that backs this up, is the more that you focus on, concentrate on, and talk about your pain, actually the worse it gets. So if somebody's every day is asking about pain, and I'm not saying this is easy, I'm not saying I got the answers for this one, but I am going to say is the way that you can actually minimize your focus on that pain. I will give you a tip, and one of the tips is get engaged in a hobby that you haven't done in a while that you know you love to do. Every other day, it may be a Bible study with friends, it may be a going out to coffee, it may be a luxury, gardening, reading, things that you love to golf, things that you love to do. And I know the pain is, but those are the things that help to keep your mind off it, as hard as that is. And I hate to even say it because I feel like I throw you to the wolves. That one's a tough one. I'm not saying it, but that's the stuff neurologically that when you start to piece this stuff together, you start to say, maybe you start to a day of 8 out of pain, maybe turn to 7, and then it gives you hope that you can heal.
I love it. So, and remember, guys, one of the things, so he ran through those last 3 or 4, and we have touched on those. However, I want you to just throw the bow on this real fast. So you went through expressive writing, gratitude, deep breathing, meditation, and then this interaction with our spouse or significant other that's always getting us to talk about it. But one of the things that I wanted to make sure we didn't lose track of here is that when you do these things, this isn't some esoteric, kumbaya. You're literally changing what's happening in your brain through the neurology. And as you change neurology, the internal doctor can do its job. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, 100%. That's why I say you're such a great communicator. You said it better than I, and you're absolutely right. And I want to just make sure that is expressed. And if we had another hour in here, I would have spent another 45 minutes explaining to you all the evidence that supports all this stuff, because I feel like there's somebody out there, like you said, I would have been the same way. This is so theory, it's so abstract, it's so hard. But I'm going to tell you, you cannot ignore the evidence of something as simple as gratitude's effect on your pain. Expressive writing's effect on your pain and immunity and digestion, right? The chiropractic adjustments effect on central nervous system and stress hormones, and thus your pain. And so you're absolutely right, man. We're affecting the physiology, which is then actually the thing that the greatest doctor doesn't want. The pain. The greatest doctor will help you get rid of the pain. We're not getting rid of it. The doctor, you're getting rid of it, because that's the greatest intelligence inside. God placed an ability for you to heal itself. And as much as it's maybe hard for you to believe that because you're in pain, right? Another study, 2003, showed a study, it measured chiropractic adjustments compared to acupuncture, compared to NSAIDs for those in chronic pain, chronic spinal pain. And actually the worst patients were the ones that were under chiropractic care. And chiropractic was 5 times better than NSAIDs and 3 times better than acupuncture in getting rid of spinal pain. So I could, again, go through all the evidence that supports this. I just want you to know there is evidence. This is research-based. It's not a theory. And you're right. It doesn't make it easy. It makes it simple. It doesn't make it easy. And so that's why I really want to sympathize with you. It's like, I do understand, and Matt, you understand it better than anybody. So, that's why I'm so thankful you're doing this, because there's so many people that need. I'll be honest. I started putting out a lot of this content on this stuff, and one of the biggest challenges I got, and I could not deny it, is that people say, if you've never experienced this, you don't know what you're talking about. And ultimately, I had to agree with them. I haven't experienced the chronic pain to the degree. Sure, I had pain when I was 16 years old. It lasted about 3 or 4 months, but I can't. Now I've worked with it clinically and got a lot of people overcome this, but there's something about, Dr. Matt, for you to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to walk you through this. I'm going to hold your hand, because you know what, I've been there. I haven't. I can show you the evidence, but I want you to know there's research behind everything we're talking about.
Cool. And yeah, and I'm going to suggest probably at some point we schedule that part 2.
Yeah.
A lot of people love the science, and so here's where I want to go. I had this thought, this idea that I'm in pain and I need to run for a med, or I need to run for a surgery, or and that's like, listen, I get it. Like, that's how our mind is wired. Like, it hurts. Greatest doctor's inside of me. Whatever. I got to go to make an appointment. I got to go to the ER. Like, I get it. But listen, guys, 120 years ago, 130 years ago, there was no surgery. Mm-hmm. Not like today. There were no medications. Not like today. They literally had the tools that Dan is talking about of changing neurology.
Well, let me tell you that, though. Here's the other thing. 50 years ago, they showed, this is actually now 60 years ago, that the average stress on an average adult was somebody that was incarcerated for being like insane. So part of the thing, you look at this, you cannot deny the amount of emotional that has on us. So if you open up Facebook, you're immediately comparing your life to everybody else's. They didn't have that either. So we have to acknowledge there are certain things that we have to be able to address. And one of them is this mental emotional thing, to say, how do we do this? I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying when you combine all this stuff, it is tougher in today's world. Why do 111 million Americans alone suffer from chronic pain every single day? Like, every single day. It's because we're surrounded by, and then you go to the doctor and they, I won't even go to this, man. I could, because we want to get out of the past. 2001, the American Academy of Pain guidelines changed, and pain became a 5th vital sign, which is why every doctor's visit, you focus on pain. And when you do this, you get a lot of people that say, I got in pain. And then drugs became the 3 top drugs for this, opioids. And then it just became this cascade. So I'm telling you, you're not wrong. The pain's there, but I am telling you, you tune into resources like this. You tune into Dr. Matt. You tune into a podcast. You tune into the experts that are acknowledging that there's something greater inside you that can heal you, and then come alongside you and say, but there are obstacles we got to overcome, and we're going to do that with you.
Well, I was going to ask you to wrap it up, but I think you just did. So that was really good. So here's my last question for you. And maybe if you have one parting statement, and then also if there is a place for the docs that are listening to find out what you're doing, because if you're not paying attention to what Dan's doing as a chiro, then you got your head's in the sand, because this is the cutting edge science. This will change your practice, change your family. And then for the people out there with chronic pain, so wrap this thing up. Let us know where we can find you. And then, like always, we'll put all the stuff that we talked about today in the show notes, the resources, the books that you've talked about, some of the studies. But wrap this thing up. Let us know where we can find you. If someone's got questions from the doc side, or maybe even a patient, reach out if they have a question.
Yeah, so I think the easiest one would be you can find me if you're a doc. Well, even if you're a patient, so you could go to the chiropractic advocate. Actually, it's www.chiropracticadvocate.com. That's my website. You can find me on Facebook, which is Dan Sullivan DC, or Dr. Dan Sullivan. Dr. Dan Sullivan is my public professional page, so that's an easy one to get at me, and those messages come to me. So you can find me on Instagram at Dr. Dan Sullivan. And I'm pretty easy to get a hold of them in terms of messages. And then I also have a Facebook page called Conquering Chronic Pain. Conquering Chronic Pain. We put up content. My friend Dr. Josh Axe and myself, we create a lot of content, whether it be on the nutritional side, the neurology side, and the physical side, addressing all these components. So I'm pretty a resource to use, and would love to help you any way I can. And then again, I just need to stress, like, keep engaged with the podcast like this. If you're maybe a new listener, or you've listened in, like, this stuff is just becoming more and more relevant, and Dr. Matt is sharing stuff that's on the cutting edge of science. And so that's what I want you to know. And coming from somebody who deals with this every single day, has dealt with himself, you can't get anywhere else. So yeah, those are the areas to find me.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you being here today. I know we went a few minutes past when we talked to you. I know you got to go, but thanks for being here. Hey, everybody, thanks for listening to the Pain Sucks podcast. Remember, no one gets to tell you that you can't heal. It's all about that little sliver of hope, using your moments for your momentum, getting your breakthroughs. And this is one that's going to be hopefully 1 million views from every single angle, because how can we deny the science of how people get better? So, Dan, have an awesome day. We'll talk soon, buddy.
Hey, God bless you, man. Thank you. Yep, you too.
Bye.